Hi everyone, thank you for dialing in. We're just about to start with our holiday season live stream for app developers. So let me just do a quick check to make
Dialing
sure.
in, we're just about to start with our.
This should be fine now. Apologies about the sound. That's exactly what I was doing. Testing whether everything is working okay. Okay, sounds good. I will give a few more minutes for all of our guests who are planning to join to dial in. So please gather up virtually. And for those of you who are already on the live stream and in chat, if you don't mind just giving me a heads up or otherwise, a thumbs up or otherwise on whether you can hear me okay. So just want to make sure we have our connection established and everything's working fine from the technical perspective. So please let me know if you cannot hear me. Okay. I will take this as a yes, we can hear you, and yes, we can proceed. Well, hello once again, everyone, and welcome to this video. My name is Masha. I'm part of the online partnership group here at Google. I work with web publishers and app developers, helping them improve and grow their business with ad monetization. Thanks for dialing in and taking your time during this busy holiday season. We're going to talk a lot about this time being busy, so appreciate you being here to learn some tips and tricks that we wanted to share with you around this important time of the year. So today we're going to talk about app business and the holiday season and how to make the most of it. So these are definitely not all the possible, but some of the most important tips and tricks that we wanted to share with you. Thank you to those of you who confirmed in chat that the sound is working fine. Appreciate it. So we've reviewed some of the questions that you have sent. Thank you for doing that and incorporated that into the content. So hopefully most of them are going to be answered as much as possible and the time allows. I'll try and jump into the chat and take some of the questions from the chat on the fly, but also don't want to make this video very, very long. So apologies if we cannot answer all of the questions today in real time. Yes, a few logistical points before we start. We're going to share this video with everybody who's registered, obviously. You will also have a chance to download the materials after sharing your feedback with us. So please take a moment to let us know if this was helpful and how can we make it better. And I will also make sure to include into the video description the relevant resources for the topics that we've covered. Some of the things are more directional, but some of them are quite specific, like implementation instructions for a certain feature. So I'll try and make sure that all of this is linked. So those of you who are ready to put these ideas into action can do so promptly and hopefully easily. With that, let me wrap up the less interesting part with housekeeping and actually get to the content. I encourage you to use the chat. I'll try and keep an eye on it as much as possible. So as I said, today we'll be talking about winning in the app business during the holiday season. And specifically, we'll look at the three big parts. Why does the holiday season matter? What are some of the key data points that make us believe that this is an extremely, extremely important time for you, dear app developers, to optimize and really get the most out of your app revenue, whether that's coming from ads or ads plus an app purchase. We're going to also go through a seasonality checklist of some of the things we'd recommend you take into account and make sure you optimize for. And as I said, as much as possible throughout the content, we'll be jumping in to address some of the questions. So let's get started. Let's look at what makes the holiday season so special. Let me make the slides the main part of the screen so you can focus on the content. And just to start with a disclaimer, these are some of the important dates in the Q4 of every year. There is so many more across the globe. And I know that for you as app developers, the global aspect of the audience is very, very critical. So don't take this as an exhaustive list. This is one of the examples of looking at the key dates on a calendar, such as Halloween, Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Christmas, and New Year. So these are holidays that are relevant for countries such as the US, Canada, the UK, but there is so many other important dates that exist. So one tip that I would definitely suggest to all of you is to identify the key countries where your app is getting the most usage and make sure you have a calendar like that, not just for Q4, but for the whole year to really know what are the key dates that matter for your audience. What do we know about some of the consumer patterns during the Q4 or end of the year holiday season? Well, one of the key things that we want to focus on is the data point called out on the slide, which is almost 80% of US smartphone owners plan to use their phone to help with the holiday shopping. So a lot of commercial activity will be happening on people's phones. So it's really, really important that you capitalize on everything that will support that activity advertising-wise. Another key thing to keep in mind is Q4 is also peak season for smartphone sales. A lot of the smartphones are going to be sold around this time, and not only will there be more smartphones on the market, but the leisure time that people spend on their phone is going to increase almost 40% versus non-holiday periods. This is really important because this goes back to the time that your audience spends on their phone. And as much as possible, we want to make sure that your great apps are part of that 6.5-hour average. Another thing that I find quite interesting and somewhat overlooked in the past is also the data points that have to do with the new smartphone owners. So as you know, getting smartphones for end of the year holidays is quite common. Many of us would be getting a new smartphone or gifting a new smartphone. So keep in mind that the new smartphone owners tend to have 5x the average download activity. That's very, very significant number. So way more apps are going to be downloaded, and 70% of them will be downloaded within the first week of getting the phone. So this is the number that you want to be part of. These are users who will be looking for great value add, beautifully built, and useful ultimately and engaging and fun apps. So make sure that the way you plan your awareness as part of your marketing campaigns capitalizes on this trend. Q4 is also the hottest season for downloads and monetization. So you're going to see that the mobile app market reached its peak at Q4 with more than 3x increase in terms of number of downloads. This also means that the competition is extremely high globally during the end of the year. So factor that into your plans, and we're going to talk more about what that means for you tactically. However, these are just some of the verticals that are seeing great revenue from the holiday season. So as you can see, this chart starts in 2014, and since then there has not been a decline in terms of the Q4 increase in revenue from the holiday season. So this is really a good time for commercial activity, and we encourage you to be mindful and plan ahead of how you're going to position your app during this critical months. Interestingly, not just ad monetization is seeing an increase in terms of revenue, but also in-app purchase has shown steady growth during this season. So if you look at this graph, we're looking at the global in-app purchase revenue across different types of apps. The trend is showing that in key dates such as Black Friday or Christmas, New Year, for example, all of the apps are spiking with their IAP revenue trends. It's interesting to see that tools have a significant jump compared to games around the Black Friday, and then games are obviously showing a very, very big jump around Christmas and New Year. Going back to the ad business, investment in advertising has been increased significantly during this time of the year as well in order to capture the users and maximum revenue. So this is very consistent with the other slide we've seen. Basically, there's never going to be more advertising budgets to go around from one quarter to another than during this time of the year. And that brings us to the point that's probably closer to you as app developers and a metric that you look at on a daily basis, which is the CPM. So as you can see, again, going back all the way to 2016, Q4 averages do not disappoint. They increase consistently, and we're expecting this year to be another strong eCPM quarter compared to other quarters. So now that we're done with a little bit of context and some of the key data points, let's actually look at what are the things that you can consider doing to make sure your business, whether that's an ad or in-app purchase business, is ready for holiday season. Two things to keep in mind. Your CPMs are going to be the highest this quarter. So how can you really maximize your total revenue during this time of the year is an important question to ask yourself. However, you will also see a significant increase in your CPIs. So you need to be prepared to compete in this much busier market. And we're going to talk about some of the pro tips in terms of user acquisition campaigns. But first, let's start at looking at your app. So the very first advice, and I know we talk about it quite often, but it never gets old in terms of being relevant, and it's only that much more relevant during the holiday season, is to please know your users as much as possible. This is really the time to spend with ad mock reports or looking at the data in your Firebase analytics. Why is it important? You need to understand where your audiences are. This way you will know which holidays matter for them, which dates are important for them. You can adjust the different settings of your ads to really maximize your revenue. So please spend some time mapping out where the opportunities are for your account. Not a single app and AdMob account are created equal. They're all different in terms of what works for them. But this is a shared best practice that understanding where the trends are coming from is very important, especially during this time of the year. On a slightly more fun note, give your apps a festive feeling. This is the time of holidays. This is a time when people celebrate a lot of things. So try and think about new skins for your characters, collectibles or offers. Really get creative. And I know so many of you love doing this because you get inspired by your users and the feedback from your community. So really try experimenting with making your app stand out in this holiday period. One of the things that I always encourage the partners I talk to consider is to think about seasonal events when it comes to rewarded ads. Rewarded ads are a very powerful mechanism to drive not just premium ad revenue, but also increase the user engagement with your app. Because ultimately this is an ad, when the user clicks on, they say, there is a reward I want at the end, and I would like to see this ad to get that reward. And that reward usually increases the time spent with your app because the user, the player is really engaged at the moment and is looking to keep being engaged with your app. So making your rewarded ads holiday ready is very important, and it will appeal to your audience, and I think will just make it all more fun. From the app perspective, also think about making the overall app stand out during the holiday season. For example, would you want to change the app icon to utilize the holiday features? This will help you capture increased demand surrounding the holiday events. And again, you can be as creative as possible. Also think about updating overall the visuals for your app. It's not just about the holiday symbols, but it's also about the things that matter during the holiday season. Some of the feature-oriented changes that you can make, or feeling-oriented, or art-oriented, which is the most it's most effective with game apps. Using artistic images and illustrations to update your app and give it a new look. One of our partners, as you can see on the slide, has seen a very significant increase in store conversion rates just by testing the icon design. Well, I shouldn't be saying just. This is a lot of work, but it's definitely worth it. So take this testing and experimenting approach to figure out what works for your app and how your app should be presented on a digital store. Ultimately, this is the same as a physical store. When you scroll through a street, you see all the windows in the different shops being updated during this time of the year. So why not take the same approach for your app? This is another example where the developer has taken it a step further and was testing a bunch of different variations and has seen the one that works the best to increase the installs. So this is really important. Get creative and then back it up with data. One of the things that I wanted to cover and being mindful of the fact that for many of you, the development time is very precious and very scarce. So, encouraging you to fully update your app just for this time of the year is probably not that realistic. So we wanted to talk about a few best practices around seasonal activities that do not require app development or require very minimal app development. So again, this all comes back to you knowing your audience, what are the use cases of them engaging with your app, and getting creative. So think about holiday campaigns, new stages or new features, maybe seasonal creatives for a campaign. Things like that do not require a change in your core app development. Another cool idea that's called out here is the downloadable Christmas cards, for example, or wallpapers with game characters. Again, these are things that will add value to your users, that will bring the festive and updated look and feel, and do not require you to update the app fully on the development side. Lottery event is another thing people are experimenting with. So in-app lottery to earn some soft currency. This will not only bring the festive spirit, but it's likely to increase your user engagement and retention, as people would be quite engaged with the process. There's a few other examples here. Again, going back to the idea of minimal app development, slightly higher than on the previous slide, but still something that you can put in place, relatively straightforward. Some of the special season items for login missions. Think about spinner events and seasonal costumes. Last but not least, it is such a powerful way to make your app stand out during the holiday season, make it relevant and appeal to users, and yet make it different. There's a few other examples that you can look through here. We're talking about launching new maps or having new seasonal stages. It can allow gamers to carry partial benefits of that to the main game, which would be quite engaging, or really redevelop part of the game to include seasonal specific challenges and gameplay. Again, we're trying to appeal to a wide range of developers. You have different time available, different resources. So the main takeaway here is try as much as possible, but do not feel limited if your development opportunities at this point in time are scarce. There are still things you can do to capitalize on the holiday season. Some of the things that are called out on this slide, I particularly like because I think it's quite creative and it shows a deeper connection with your users in terms of understanding what is their use case with your app. So if it's relevant for you, think about offering discounts, having promotional collections available. Usually, this is something you would be offering with a holiday-themed package. So really try and be relevant to your audience and the holidays that matter for them. Creating special content, it tends to outperform the non-holiday content in terms of engagement, and helps you stay relevant and top of the mind for your audience. Or festive activities. A lot of the events during this time of the year are centered around giving and gifting and giving. So see what are some of the things that you can do in that space. Okay, we've covered the data points. We've talked about the app. Let's look at your AdMob account. A very important part of the equation, because this is where the ad revenue magic happens. So we definitely want to make sure we're covering our bases. So, sorry, before I jump into the next slide, a few quick but important callouts, please. Make sure that you have your app's ADS.txt file set up. This is something that you can do directly in your AdMob account. Make sure that you enable all ad types. I can't emphasize how important this is. Oftentimes, for a number of reasons, interstitials are only set to show rich media and not video. This is a very big missed opportunity as one of the examples, right? So make sure all of the ad types are enabled. This will only help you maximize your revenue. Pre-cache your ads and minimize category blocking. While it's important for you to stay on top of the category blocking based on your audience and the type of ad, also do not go to the extreme of restricting the advertisers that you allow to show on your app to the point where it would hurt your revenue. So let's talk a little bit more specifically. One of the things that we encourage our developers to do during this holiday time is to really focus on the best performing ad formats. There's many ad formats out there available for you, but as we've seen in the beginning of this discussion, there's a lot of advertising budgets and advertisers are getting just as creative as developers. So we want to make sure you're using the formats that really embrace all the different and especially premium ads that are available out there. So make sure that you have your interstitials enabled, your rewarded ads enabled. Take advantage of using native ads. And don't forget about the banners. There are an important part of your overall revenue mix. And when it comes to banners, what I wanted to call out here is the adaptive banners, a relatively new feature that was rolled out to help you improve the experience for your audience for all different device sizes that they might be using and help you maximize your revenue. What I will do is I will link to the description of this video the implementation guide for adaptive banners. It's quite a straightforward change that I believe many of you can put in place relatively shortly. And it's a new format that would help you take that banner experience even further. So you can see on the screen here what is the difference between a fixed size banner, a smart banner, and an adaptive banner. So the adaptive banner will adjust by using the fixed aspect ratio to a different device size. So if you know that your users are using different devices, this feature is a very good addition to your AdMob account. Many of you are not just using AdMob or different AdMob features, but are also using Firebase, which is great and something we recommend continuously to all of our developers. We want to make sure that you're taking advantage of what Firebase has to offer. One of the things that we particularly encourage you to look at during this time of the year is the Firebase A/B testing. So keep in mind that in Firebase, you can run A/B tests to try and experiment with different metrics, including ad monetization metrics. Some of the key questions that when we work with developers, we help them answer via Firebase A/B tests are things like, I'm running interstitials. Where should they be placed? Should they be placed after the second screen change or after the third? It's very hard to answer this question without knowing what the data shows. So why not set up an experiment or an A/B test in Firebase and let the system run the two versions for you and show you which one wins. And more importantly, the metrics that you can track to make the decision will not just be your ad revenue metrics, they will also be your user engagement metrics. So maybe having the interstitial placed after the second screen change has very good impact on ad revenue, but also a negative impact on your user retention. While the third screen is the opposite. You would know from that data set which scenario to roll out. So placement and frequency are the two things that we encourage our publishers to test with Firebase A/B tests. It's relatively straightforward. There's a lot of materials out there on Firebase, so please check them out. And it's important for you to be data-driven when you set up those changes in your app. Rewarded, a premium format with the highest CPM out of all of them. So make sure that you optimize it. And when it comes to optimization of rewarded ads, it really goes beyond just thinking about such concepts like placement or frequency. It really goes back to understanding how does your rewarded ad work with the rest of your app. So is the value of the reward that you provide important enough for the user? is the placement of the so-called ad prompt, where you're encouraging people to click on the rewarded ad to get a reward. Is it prominent? Is it visible? Or maybe it's hidden and users never get to it. So really think about the different stages of rewarded ads and optimize for their best placement, but also value and how they work with the rest of the app. Native ads have two main components for you to think about, design and placement. So don't underestimate either of them. Generally, native ads perform the best when they take up a bigger share of the screen. So think about what are the screens within your app that allow for that opportunity, and where would you like to place your native ads. They also perform really, really well in the in-feed experience. So whenever your users are scrolling, there is an opportunity for you to break that list of items with a native ad. And again, placement just as important as for any other format. So don't underestimate that and test different placements with Firebase. Okay, so coming up to the next part of this update. Now that we've talked about the ad revenue, it's equally important, and especially during this time of the year, for you to think about your user acquisition. So not just optimize your app for existing users and existing ad placements, but also make sure that you are continuing to grow your audience with your for your app. So here are some of the things that we want to suggest to you to consider for when you're running universal app campaigns, which is a great tool to drive more awareness and more usage to your app. Well, first and foremost is we use this term holiday season, but every holiday within this period of time is very unique and different. So make sure that you have separate campaigns and ads running for each individual event. Black Friday is a very different event from Christmas or New Year. So don't bundle everything together into the holiday season, but be mindful and be careful when creating individual campaigns. And again, some of the examples here are only relevant to some markets. Focus on the dates that matter for your audience. The calendars are very different across the globes. So these are just examples, and we encourage you to think from your audience perspective of what really matters as a holiday season. Create a sense of urgency. Can't emphasize that enough. That drives action, that reminds people that they need to take action. It's really, really important since there's a lot of advertising activity competing for the attention of your users. So either create urgency in timing or the number of deals available or the final number of days before the products will be delivered before the holiday. I really like the last one. I think it's very user-centric and it focuses on what is it the user wants to do. Utilize holiday-specific copy, so really make, just like we were talking about making your app look festive, make sure that your ads are also overall festive. And keep an eye on the ads you're running and when you're doing that. It can be a very bad user experience if you're advertising a sale that is already over. Skin your app, we've talked about it. Icons, characters, festive holiday themes. So encouraging you to get creative and have fun. It's great time of the year to do that. A few pro tips to run an effective UAC or Universal App campaign during the holiday season. Well, one is set your target CPI slightly higher and uncap your budgets. Holiday season is very competitive and auction pressure increases. Make sure to customize the creatives for the season and add specific incentives. So this goes back to the previous list as well, where we want to make sure that you are being relevant or your ads are being relevant to the time of the year that they're running, and they're really speaking to the audience and making your app stand out. And work smarter, not harder. No need to invest time in manual optimization over the holidays. Universal app campaigns are there to do the heavy lifting for you, and continue to staying in control of your main KPIs. So train the algorithm as much as possible and ensure a good ramp up by kicking off the campaigns 1 or 2 weeks in advance. Definitely avoid any short-term campaigns for a day or two during this time. There's a lot of competition. There's a lot of metrics that are changing. So allow the system at least 1 or 2 weeks to stabilize. Last but not least, user experience at the core of everything. Make sure that you update your app routinely, and that it's running smoothly for all of your audience and users. This is at the core of what you're creating as an app developer. So please do not overlook this important point during the busy end of the year time. And this is it from us and our friendly Santa character there, and Santa's helpers. I hope you found this tips and tricks useful. There's so many more things we just are not able to cover in the limited time, but we've picked the ones that we thought matter the most. And as I said, I'll include the implementation instructions for things like adaptive banner, and I encourage you to review our educational materials, be it on the Help Center, on the Developer Hub, or on the YouTube channel around things like interstitial, native best practice optimizations. There's a lot of materials out there around Firebase A/B tests. One of my favorite resources is the Firebase use case. I'll make sure to include it into the description of this video as well. But essentially, it goes back to what are the goals you're trying to achieve as a developer, and how can Firebase help you do that, from optimizing your app to optimizing your ads. So definitely have a look. I see that there's not a lot of questions on the chat, and we are running quite short on time. So I think we'll be wrapping this up, but definitely let us know in the feedback form if you would like these videos to be longer or shorter, so that we can customize them more and better for you in the future. Just check the chat. I guess with that in mind, I will wrap it up here. Thank you for spending this time with us. Definitely watch out for more videos coming your way. Q4 is a busy season for everybody, so we'll be making sure to keep you updated with optimization tips and tricks, with any product launches that are relevant. And we're wishing you a very strong end of the year. All the best with your app business, and looking forward to more of these virtual gatherings with all of you. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.